Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Christian. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, good day. Wherever you are, whenever you're seeing this, I hope you are good. So guys, today we're going to be talking about things to know before you turn 30, I guess, and things that you learn as you're turning 30, as you're stepping into that 30 era. Somebody actually told me to do 30 things to know before you turn 30. I don't know if this is going to be 30 things, honey, but I have a couple of things that we could talk about and we'll get into. Someone also told me to do a video about your frontal lobe developing and how that kind of changes your thought processes and what you want and how you think and how you feel and all of that good stuff. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that too. I guess just the shift that happens as you enter your 30s and how I feel about the shift that happened. Goodness, a shift. Y'all don't even know everything that's happened since I turned 30. Okay. Really just this year, and maybe we'll never do that life update. I don't know when I'll be ready for a life update, but I will say that there is a lot of things that change. You guys have brought that up several times. Several of you have brought up wanting me to talk about just turning 30 and all the things that go into that. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Okay, guys, if you guys want to follow me, stay up to date with everything, you guys already know the tea. Check down below in the description box where you can book readings with me. Follow me on social media. Stay connected to me and everything that we're doing here. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it, guys. The biggest thing that I want to make you remember, the biggest thing that I want to put into your subconscious, if I can tell you anything or make you remember anything, I would say that, I don't think there's any age that we all collectively turn and something just switches. I think that's not the case. I know a lot of people that are over 30 that still don't have anything up top. It might not be a frontal lobe, might not be the temporal lobe, might be gone. They might not have any lobes. So, I know a lot of grown adults, that are still working through getting their brain together. And I think that just because you turn a certain age, it doesn't automatically mean that you're going to be feeling differently and looking differently and all of those things. But I will say this, that's not for everybody, but I say that to say the whole reason I'm saying that is because don't take what I'm saying and look at everybody around you that's turning this age and think that everybody's supposed to be feeling and thinking the same thing. You may think that because you're here, you're a part of the Pixies, you're here, you're in a different space, you know what I'm saying? You're conscious of how you want to change, of how you want to grow. If you're that type of person, then absolutely turning 30 is going to be a very big shift for you. Physically, it might not be a lot that changes. You might not end up in a better job automatically. You may not end up seeing your life change before you, but you will think differently and feel differently. And we can just break that down, but I did want to start off by saying everybody's frontal lobe, I don't know what everybody's frontal lobe is doing. I just don't know. I said on a previous video that some people's frontal lobe might not kick in until they're, in their 70s. Who knows? But, just because you turn 30 doesn't mean you automatically have sense. So don't think that dating older or being around older people or, don't feel like older people always have the answers, and as someone that's always had older friends, as someone that just, has always resonated with older people, I've literally said I felt like I'm 30 since I was 26, honey. I've been saying, ooh, girl, I'm just so tired of being 30. Literally, I've been saying that for years. So I think that, when you are mature on any age, stepping into any new chapter, any new season, I think that as you're making that transition, you're going to be looking to feel different. You're going to be looking to think different. You're going to be looking to notice those shifts, and those shifts happen differently for everybody. I also will say that we think sometimes that when we turn 30, it's going to be this huge big thing that happens, and then we're often left disappointed, and then that sends us on a journey to figure out, okay, well, why did I think this age was going to bring me all of these things? Why did I think just turning this was going to do all of these things for me? So I think the biggest thing that happens when you turn 30 is it forces you to be introspective. It forces you to think about your life, where you are, what your expectations have been for this new season, how you feel about where you are, and how do you feel about that? Do you feel good or bad or neutral about it? And then what does that mean? Are you ready to change things? Are you ready to keep things the same? Are you ready to, completely backtrack and start over? I think 30 is a good time to evaluate where you are, what's been working, how you've been feeling. I also think it's a good time to, like I mentioned, put things in new perspectives, figure out what's important to you, what's valuable to you. I would say 30 is a good time to start being honest with yourself. By 30, you have a good idea of your strengths, your weaknesses, those things that make you tick, the boundaries that are difficult for you to set, your insecurities. By 30, you have a pretty good idea of your problems, of your issues. And if you don't, you should go see the lady. I think by 30, you should also be aware of what you have going on mentally and physically. If you know you need more sleep, if you know you need less caffeine, if you know you need to use natural products, if you know you need to read more, if you know you need to meditate, if you know you need to see a specialist, whatever you need to know, this is also the time to start taking your mental and your physical health very, very seriously. If you want to get back into school, now is the time to start planning for that. If you want to have a family, now is the time to start, guiding yourself towards that. And, 30 is just the beginning of your adulthood. It's just the beginning of you deciding where you want to start off, because you may decide you want to do this and end up in a completely different space. I also think that 30 is the time when you undo all of the decisions that you made when you were 25. I made a lot of decisions when I was 25. And, I've been saying lately that you'll never be more fake grown than at 25. At 25, you feel like an OG. I don't know why I don't know where y'all are from, but where I'm from, people always say, if you make it 25, you OG. Like, by the time you're 25, you really feel grown. Like, you feel like it's a blessing to be 25. It's a blessing to be in this space. Like, you really feel like you just have it figured out. Like, you feel like the next step is 30, and then you just gonna be smooth sailing. But 30 is the first step. 25 is like the last step of thinking that you have it all figured out. And by the time 30 comes, you should be very humble. You should be open to life's lessons. You should be open to things coming and going in and out of your life. It shouldn't, throw you off if you don't get the job interview, if the person doesn't like you on the date, or if you have an argument with your family, or if this doesn't go good, and not to say you're going to be numb to things, but you should feel more secure in your emotions and in your mindset. You should feel like you're in control of what you think and what you feel and what you want, and not outside influences and outside, things that could be impacting what you really desire. I think as you step into 30, it's the time to really be specific about what you want. It's the time to not have any just not settle, not have things in your life that you've been needing to let go. So issues that you've had, problems that you've had, stuff is going to be getting worse at 30, and worse in the sense of it's going to be more in your face. Issues are going to be more in your face this year. And I literally just turned 30, last month, September. I just turned 30, August 10th, girl. But this year I have been, and maybe it's because I'm turning 30, maybe it's because I'm wrapping up my Saturn return. I don't know what it is, honey. And your Saturn return takes place between, 27 and I believe 31 for some people on the later end, but usually around 27, 28, we start going through our Saturn return. Saturn represents accomplishments, shadow work, looking yourself in the mirror, recognizing where you are practically, responsibilities, how you've been showing up for yourself. And a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, you guys know we have all of these different placements in our birth chart, and it represents the placement that Saturn was in. So whenever Saturn is back in the placement that it was in when you were born, you're stepping into your Saturn return, and that happens around 30-ish years. So it is, also astrologically and, energetically a time of reflection, of looking within, of saying, well, how am I? It's a time to have that kind of yearly review with yourself and really check in with who you are, where you're going, and how you're doing. And I also feel like, as 30 comes, because we've been in that space, I always say that ignorance is no longer bliss. We don't have the benefit of ignorance once we get to a certain space. That's how you feel when you're 30. And if you feel like you're still ignorant to stuff, then you have been drinking the Kool-Aid too long, and you need to get out of the sunken place. Now, some people are still going to be delusional into their 30s, into their 40s, into their 50s. You know what I'm saying? Like, we come across people all the time. We see people on social media all the time that are older, but I'm not sure if these sound bowls are too loud or not loud enough. I feel like one notch is too loud and one notch down is not loud enough. Let me know how the volume is, but I'm going to keep it at this because I don't want it to be too loud. I'd rather it be too low than too loud and too overstimulating. So some people are still going to be delusional, into however old they are, but the hardest thing that you can do is be real with yourself. That's the hardest thing that you can do, because it may cause you to deal with guilt, shame, disappointment, frustration. Think about how hard it is. When all of my friends were turning 30 and I was 27, I was like, they literally all had a breath of fresh air. I'm like, girl, I'm dying over here. It's hard in the late 20s. I know y'all feel like y'all just got your groove back. Where is my groove? I can't even locate my groove. I don't even know what my groove is. So I feel like it's such a you're confronted so strongly with the shame, with the guilt. My depression was very, very bad, when I was in my later 20s in the last couple of years. I told you guys that about a year ago I started antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. I just had a lot of different things fall apart in my life. I had a lot of stuff that I was dealing with on my job, which of course has all worked in my favor. I've had a lot of different things that I've experienced with relationships. I lost, best friends in the last couple of years. A lot of different things have shifted for me. I've had a lot of heartbreak, in the last few years, from everybody, from friends, from people I've loved, from family. I've, even broken my own heart, realizing how maybe I haven't been the best friend to myself in certain spaces. I've cried to myself and cried to other people, and it's been so many different things that I've experienced, and I think stepping into 30 should feel like you're taking all of that heaviness and turning it into something that can fuel you. Because throughout that heaviness, have you been tapped in? I think that's the biggest determinant of how you're going to feel stepping into 30. Like, have you just been feeling crazy in your late 20s and not tapping in with, what this craziness has been teaching you? Because throughout all of those issues and problems, your discernment should have been ringing. Like, throughout everything I was experiencing, all the bad decisions, all the bad choices, all of the things that I did that I'm having to undo now, I was aware in that moment of why I was making those choices. And in that moment, it seemed right for me to make those choices for those reasons. There are certain things that I did specifically to just blend in. There are certain things that I did so I wouldn't have to accept certain parts of myself. There are certain things that I accepted so I wouldn't have to deal with not accepting it. And at the time, I 100% stood by those decisions because I felt like it would give me the best outcome. It would give me the most peace. But those were decisions I made strictly to avoid being uncomfortable. And now I'm just having to face all of those things now and deal with being uncomfortable, and it's even scarier now because I've been hiding it for all of this time, hiding it from myself, hiding it from other people in my life. But the biggest thing to deal with is hiding your truth from yourself. And it could be truth about who you are, what you want, where you're going, what you've been doing, your motives, your perspectives, what is right and wrong. There's so many things that we do to make ourselves comfortable in rough spaces, and your Saturn return is rough. So in those last, couple of years as you're stepping into 30, even if there was no Saturn return, you're stepping into a new decade. Anytime we step into a new decade as humans, we're going to be thinking about that and focusing on that. And 30 it has always been a symbol of adulthood. And for whatever reason, 30 feels so old. And I feel like we're the first generation where we're like, girl, 30 is nothing because, 30 years ago or 20 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, 30-year-olds are married with children. All 30-year-olds are not married with children now. We have 40 and 50-year-olds who aren't married with children. We have people that are, starting their lives much, much later, starting families much later. People that never have families and don't care. People that are, famous on the internet. People that have been able to start businesses and live the really true lives that maybe they weren't able to live. Women and men don't have to get married for survival everywhere in the world. Some places it is still smart to do it. It's smart to do it right now for survival for sure. But you know what I mean. It's not like it was 50 and 60 years ago where people had to get married for survival. You had to get married as a woman to have a bank account, to have access to certain things. Those things aren't true anymore for women or for men. Men don't have to have a family necessarily to feel like they have succeeded in life. A man can literally have no wife, no children, and have billions of dollars in cryptocurrency and be that dude and be coaching other men about how to live his lifestyle. There's so many different paths now to happiness, and it's all good and fine no matter what you want, as long as you're not hurting yourself or hurting other people. And if you're hurting yourself and you like hurting yourself, it is what it is, but as long as you're not hurting other people, you can just do what you want and have the life you want. So we're realizing that 30 isn't this milestone that we once thought it was, practically, where at 30 you have to have a home, you have to have this, you have to have that. The age of people buying their homes is later and later. The age of people having their first child is later and later. We aren't seeing the things that we used to see. So I feel like what 30 is for us now is going to end up being 40, in 30 or 40 years. And it may even end up being later and later. But I think overall, we're starting to realize that life is really just beginning around this time. And the parts that are ending are the ignorant parts of us, the parts of us that don't know no better. And it's only hard when you're around other people that aren't tapped in like you. When you have people in your life that are still lying to themselves at this big age. We always say, at this big age, but 30 for me may really be 45 for me because of what I've dealt with, and it may be 16 for you because of what you dealt with. I think we all experience life in different spaces. Our physical age really has nothing to do with anything. And if you've met anybody in the world, then physical age means nothing. We have children now. The good kids are going to change the world. Like the good children that we see growing up now that are smart and wise and loving and articulate and bright and inquisitive, like we have some geniuses, across the board, not just scholastically, some geniuses of human behavior. There's so many brilliant children that I always see all the time, and so many brilliant children that I have in my life, my friends that have children. The children that I'm able to come in contact with are very bright, very smart. I think that overall, we're just seeing, things shift where people are able to find out a little bit more about who they want to be a little bit early. And the sooner you know who you want to be, the sooner you're able to take steps to become that person. And a lot of us don't even know that at 30. Sometimes 30 is the beginning of really kind of solidifying who you are in your life. And this means setting stricter boundaries, cutting people off and meaning it. It's telling yourself, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to give any more past this, and really standing on that. It means kind of really leaning into this energy that we've been running from. I think we run from being strict in our lives because it's not fun to be strict. It's not fun to have to cut people off because they do something, or, have to recognize something about a best friend and be like, oh, well, there it is. Like nowadays, somebody says one thing and you can read their character up and down. If you're tuned in, you can read somebody's character so easily, and you can easily know who they are, if they can connect with you, if they have the same values and morals as you. And that's something I realized, I would say maybe around 2020, around 5 years ago. Of course, when I became 25, I learned one thing, and that was that the thing that really, really matters is someone's values, someone's life code, their moral code, the standard that we all hold ourselves to. And at 30, you should be developing that standard. You should not be lying to yourself at 30. You should not be lying to other people at 30. Like, you should be honest with yourself, honest with others. You should be able to accept criticism and change. You should be open to taking risks. And I mean, hey, this is kind of living in a space of being uncomfortable, living in a space where you're trusting other people all the time. You're distrusting yourself and having faith, and you don't know what the hell is going to happen. That's a scary place to be in, but that's how you do life. That's how you do life. That's how you allow life to come in to how you feel and what you want and where you're going and where you're moving. It's how you allow yourself to, really feel good about where you are. It's how you coach yourself and how you remind yourself that it's okay, that you're good, that, everything is all right. Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to do that for yourself. And I know I always say that I have the best people in my life. And as I continue to go throughout life, I feel that more and more, that I have exactly who I need in my life. And of course, I'll meet people along the way, but I feel good about the decisions that I've made and the people that I have in my life. And I feel good about the space that they're in. I feel good about the space that I'm in. And that's also something that I think is important as you're stepping into your 30s, solidifying your community and what you really want in community. What kind of friends do you want? I've met and cut off so many people in the last couple of years, just making friends for no reason, and being like, girl, bye. Or having people in my life that I know are selfish, that I know aren't my cup of tea, that I know we really don't have anything in common, that I know I'm going to outgrow in literally 3 months. So what's the point of even having this person around? And not to say that, I'm that girl, even though I am. People outgrow me too. I'm not everybody's cup of tea either. So just like I've been walking away from people have been walking away from me. People haven't been knocking down my door trying to get back in my life. I've been walking away. They've been walking away. Everything's been kosher. You know what I'm saying? I think that, I've met a lot of people, had a lot of great experiences, kind of went our separate ways. I've learned a lot of lessons from a lot of different things. I've had to, get comfortable letting things come in and out of my life, get comfortable not really knowing what's going to happen, but having the faith anyway. I think turning 30, I think it shows you a lot about your surroundings, and it shows you a lot about how you interact with your surroundings. And I think it also gives you a chance to make a change and make a difference and do something different about those interactions and feel differently and operate in a different way than what you normally would. And I think it's a chance to really, like I said, be real with yourself. I think the honesty and the transparency that I have with myself at 30 is, the thing that's kept me. I think that's what keeps me being true to myself, because I can't hide from me anymore. And when you're able to still trick yourself or still make yourself feel like you don't know what's going on, when you're able to just not hold yourself accountable 100%, it's a lot that you'll let yourself get away with. A lot that you'll let yourself get away with when you're not really holding yourself accountable. But when you start to really hold yourself accountable, where if you tell yourself you're not eating sugar and nobody's around, you still don't eat it. Where if you tell yourself you going to the gym, you go to the gym even if nobody knows. Like, when you start to do stuff for you and hold yourself accountable and have conversation with yourself about what you know better and what you should be doing, and when you know better, you do better. That's something I always say to myself. But when you start to do that, I think that's when things really start to move. I think that's when things really start to evolve. I think that's when you can really just kind of say like, wow, okay, because then you can make real change. It's like, if you lying, how can you really do anything about it? And think about if you have a homegirl in your life that be lying about her relationship. You can't give her real advice because you don't know what the hell is going on. It's the same thing about yourself. Nobody can help you if you lying to you. Nobody can help you. And women, we always say that, because women, we can't leave a man for nobody, right? We won't leave a man for nobody. We have to be ready to leave that person. I don't know if men do this, but I know a woman, you cannot get a woman to leave a man. A woman is not leaving her partner for nobody. Man, woman, they, them, whoever she with. She not leaving her partner for nobody. For nobody. Unless she's getting good and ready to do it, okay? And that's something that girlfriends have to understand about your girlfriends. Your girlfriend is not leaving her man just because you want it. They're not leaving their partner just because you said so. They have to be ready to step out of that. The same thing goes for everything else in our life. Nobody can make you do anything but you. Nobody can make you realize that you need to stop, that you need to get it together, that you need to wake up and smell the coffee, except for you. And I think we spend a lot of time kicking ourselves in the ass as we're stepping into 30. From like 27 to 30, we're just beating ourselves up because we're like, I got to do this for 30. I got to get ready for 30. I got to get ready for 30. And then you kind of burn yourself out. And I think you also are able to realize what kind of teacher you need. Like, the type of teacher that I used to be with myself, I'm not on that curriculum no more. I'm not teaching myself and mentoring myself like I used to. I'm not allowing myself to do stuff that I know I shouldn't be doing just to keep myself comfortable. I'm not doing that no more. Like, I am more specific about what I want. And I also know that those moments that I'm avoiding are unavoidable. Those moments that I've been avoiding for the last 3 or 4 years, guess what? They aren't ever going anywhere. And some of these things are moments we've been avoiding our whole life. You may avoid your whole life being honest with yourself. You may be avoiding and hiding your truth for who knows how long, but I think it is very key to, it's definitely really good for your inner child as well, for you to free yourself and for you to speak up. For whatever reason, I always pictured myself in a suit at 30. Anytime I was growing up and I pictured myself at 30, I literally pictured myself in a suit with a briefcase and a mean silk press. Like literally picture myself as like a principal or something, like running business, running shit. And I mean, she still is running business. But we always picture ourselves so polished, so practical, so grown, so sophisticated, this perfect image of an adult. And, that perfect adult, or whoever we're supposed to be as an adult, as a big person, as a grown up, changes. Like, you should, I always say, I'm very whimsical because I love a good puzzle. I love a good fair. I love a lot of things that I used to love and that I kind of got myself out of, but I think it's so good to keep going to the park and keep getting on the swings and keep, chasing butterflies and keep, doing the things and jumping in the pool with your clothes on and keep, doing things that are fun and keep reminding yourself to have fun and be creative and enjoy life. And, we have such a hard time getting into 30. We can definitely forget that. So I think it's also a good, mindset to have, to just Be ready to absorb all that life has to give. Be ready for new experiences. Be ready for new love. Be ready for new travel. Just don't be ready to kind of sit down at your desk with your briefcase. Be ready to kind of take on the world. Like, see yourself as having like your sweet 16 for the rest of your life. Like, be ready to enjoy, the hard work that you've put in up to this point. Because even though you're just getting started, you've done a lot of work to get your mind right and to get your energy right. And even if you're just about to start cementing how you feel, that's a beautiful place to be in, because you know where you want to get started. And even if you don't even know where you want to get started, that's a beautiful place to be in, okay? Because the world is your oyster. You have unlimited possibilities. No matter where you are at 30, the point is you should feel good that you made it to 30. You should feel good that you're in a space where you've learned a lot, even if you don't even know what the fuck you've learned. Even if you can't even remember the last lessons, you've learned a lot. So you're in a position where nothing is stopping you from tapping into those lessons, journaling about the last 30 years of your life, where you want to get started. No matter how you feel, no matter how slow you may feel at 30, because some of us feel slow. Some of us feel like, girl, I don't know what I need and you may need a therapist. You may need to see somebody. You may need to book a session, clock it. But whatever you need to do to, put two and two together and make it make sense, you can absolutely start doing it at 30. You have the tools to understand your entire life. You do. You have the tools, and you know what to do if your frontal lobe is still slow. You need to start stimulating your brain. Like I was going to say I haven't always been intuitive, but I have. But even if you haven't always been intuitive, or you haven't always been able to control it, I definitely haven't always been able to control it. And I definitely haven't always been able to recognize stress from anxiety, or not stress from anxiety, stress from intuition, or anxious thoughts from intuition. So I will say, the more stimulation you give your mind, the more you work to break those thoughts down, the more you talk to yourself and have those conversations, the easier it'll be for you to do the work and see what you need to see. You have physically everything that you need to see what you need to see. It's just about kind of firing that part of your brain and not continuing to run from that stuff. Because it's not like, it's kind of like if you are, like let's say you're a tadpole, right? You don't have any legs and you grow your legs as a frog. If you don't start to use your legs, you're just going to swim around forever. Like, we're not animals to where we're just going to become a frog. Like, frogs will just do that, but we're not the animal kingdom. You know what I'm saying? When you become an adult, you have to become an adult. You have to put the pants on and put your hard hat on and start doing the work and start talking to God and start talking to your friends and talking to your family and start thinking about your dreams. And you have to do the work. All of that stuff isn't going to just come naturally, and you're just going to be walking in your purpose as your higher self because you're an adult now. Like, you have the tools physically and spiritually to start doing the work. So I think that's the most important thing to focus on as you're turning 30, making sure that you're ready to do the work and that you're tapped in and you're prepared to do the work and you feel good about doing the work and you feel excited about doing the work. I think that's the most important thing. I think if you could feel good about doing the work, then you'll feel good about where you are, and you'll be able to really enjoy feeling grown. Because even though I have a very long way to go and I'm really just at the precipice of my adulthood, I feel very, very beautiful about how I've set myself up. I could cry right now thinking about me and how I've set me up. But I've had to deal with a lot this year. I've had to deal with a lot this year. I've had to deal with a lot in the last, anybody that's turning 30 this year, girl, any of my 95 babies, we've had to deal with a lot. Our 25th year literally was in the pandemic. What a gag. So we've dealt with so much. All of us, no matter when you're turning 30, we've all dealt with a lot. And I think it's the biggest reward to feel like you gained something. It's the biggest blessing to feel like, well, at least now I'm prepared. I feel prepared for anything that life throws at me. I really and truly do. I feel like I'm humble enough to do whatever I need to do to get myself together. I feel like I am brave enough to do the scary things. Even though I may do them scared, I am brave enough to do the scary things. I've been going to places by myself and having conversations with people. You guys know my social anxiety is real bad. Literally still earlier this year, literally not even earlier this year, literally a couple of months ago, I still was nervous about being at events and, doing certain things by myself and, having conversations with people and just kind of relaxing and, feeling like I can kind of find my groove and really get comfortable with who I am. That's kind of still something I'm working on. Like most YouTubers. I think that most people that do content are kind of socially awkward. Who the fuck does content all day? You have to have something wrong with you. So, no tea, no shade, but I've been really, really challenging myself to do things that have scared me. And it still is hard, it still is scary, but I feel good about that. And I feel good about my effort. And I know that I'm trying my damnedest. And I feel good about that. And I feel good about where I am and where I'm going. And I hope that you feel the same when you're turning 30. So yes, guys, that is a spiel. That's my conversation about, how your mind is shifting as you turn 30, how you guys should feel. Let me know how you guys feel in the comments about this video and this topic. If you guys have any questions, let me know down below. But I love you guys. I appreciate y'all. You guys can book your spirit sync, a 90-day plan with me to get your life together. You can book a mentorship, a 30-minute session, a 60-minute session, whatever you want to do, get into it. I appreciate you guys. I love y'all. And I thank you guys for being here. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys. Bless.